The thing that makes this episode so dark is that Clarence is a show that could be seen as childish and silly. So it hits different when we see a kid dealing with a trauma so deep and intense that made him change and distance himself from everyone to avoid getting hurt again, an issue that even for adults is difficult to cope with. The episode begins without the usual intro. It just starts with a kid playing with this creepy doll. In an old commercial very similar to the Chucky ones.
You little shit!
Both the kid and that doll are wearing the same clothes and that same horrendous hairstyle. We see that the boy enjoys multiple activities with his little friend, although the other boy is quite uncomfortable by the presence of this macabre doll. In addition to the overall eerie vibe of this part, the song is talking about this. Yep, the song talks about how his little body is the only thing he needs and it's much better than a real child. Wow, that's a wild statement to make. This commercial was being shown by Clarence to his classmates. After leaving the whole class bamboozled,
Wasn't that so sweet?
he proceeds to take out his own doll, a dirty, damaged and deteriorated piece of rag. It seems he's been wearing out his little body a little bit too much. After this, Clarence's intro starts playing, which as you know is so cheerful. It is a huge contrast to the episode, but everything turns murky again with the title card, resembling a wasteland showing the remains of the doll in a very poor condition. And the music also is pretty dark, which you're hearing right now. On this desolate scene, Clarence finds himself in complete solitude, foreshadowing how Clarence will feel in this episode, since well, this episode is quite depressing. Then the episode continues at recess, when Clarence wants to show his little body to some girls. Although no one is rude to him or tells him anything about the doll, they are very uncomfortable, and that naturally makes them stay away from Clarence. The next one is Sumo. With the excuse of having a baby in his belly, Clarence wants Sumo to play with his doll. Sumo, as uncomfortable as the first two girls, says he can't as he's very busy right now.
I'm doing something.
He is persistent, and that is when he approaches Reed in an invasive manner, to force him to touch his little body. Okay, I'll stop. Reed walks away fearful and horrified from this diabolical friend, which makes him trip and fall on a sandbox, which naturally makes the little kid cry, as this for sure will leave psychological scars for the rest of his life. For this he's taken to the punishment zone with his doll for 5 minutes. Plus talking gets him 5 more. He could only watch as all his classmates laugh and have fun. That time out for a kid is an eternity, as he begins to see every second as if they were hours, days, years, and even centuries. He's pretty sure that the 5 minutes have already passed, but he's afraid to speak.
Clarence! Your 5 minutes was up 5 minutes ago! Why didn't you say something?
As soon as he's scolded and allowed to return to recess, the bell rings. It is too late. Clarence is forced to return to class in an unfair way. Now in class, Clarence is in a state of shock, while everyone is having fun. It seems that something inside of him had broken. The boys notice this and ask Clarence if he won't play with them, but our chubby boy is acting weird. Miss Baker notices this. Already at home, Clarence is releasing his inner frustration with blows. He's gonna be an excellent husband, questioning himself why he didn't say anything about his punishment, ending in the conclusion that everything is his little body's fault, since if he had never wanted others to play with him, nothing bad would have happened. It's curious how he says that he did nothing wrong, blaming everything on his doll, when it is also not to blame for anything. He just had a low awareness of the situation like any kid of his age. He just wanted to play innocently, but when he made a severe lapse of his judgment, he was blamed, taking the consequence and more of something that marked him in a negative way. So now he's looking for a scapegoat. So furious, he throws his doll against the wall, tearing off his arm. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how a wife beater was born. After this outburst of anger, he realized what he had done. Now Clarence is horrified. In another scene we can see Clarence on his skateboard while carrying what little remains of the doll. Agitated, he heads to the forest where he plans to hide his horrible sin. However, this will not be the perfect crime, since while he was having a panic attack, he quickly passes by Miss Baker, who recognizes him. We will see later the consequences of this mistake. He goes deep into the forest, where he will bury the doll, getting rid of everything, or almost everything, except Lil Buddy's arm. But still a truly talented boy for this delinquency stuff. I see so much potential. Clarence is no longer the same. That charismatic, smiling boy has disappeared. The first one to notice this is his mom, who tries to put him in a good mood with an honestly terrible joke.
What did the fisherman say to the magician? Pick a card, any card.
Clarence is now an expressionless boy. He doesn't speak, he doesn't play, and he's always in a bad mood. At first this might not seem so serious, since well, it was just a disgusting doll, but for Clarence this represented something else. A loved one whom he hurt himself in a fit of anger, felt genuine guilt when he saw what he did, and feared the consequences. He took the life of a loved one for something he didn't have any fault. I mean, this is without a doubt a top tier villain arc right here. All of this traumatized him to the extent of not enjoying the things he previously enjoyed. And this is how the days go by and the attitudes of Clarence become more and more aggressive and apathetic. And due to this he's punished. And I don't need to go Sigmund Freud in your ass to know that that's not a good thing. These constant punishments only harm Clarence more, repressing his feelings more and more, which unfortunately all those repressed emotions will come to light and cause this boy to do something crazy. Telling someone with social or behavioral problems to put on a smile and fit in, with the threat of that if he doesn't, he will receive a punishment, is the perfect recipe for a mass school shooting. He decides to paint black his room, something that serves to represent how he's seeing the world right now. Clarence leaves his house, but passed outside of the park where he buried the remains of his little body, having flashbacks of that painful memory, not letting him to be in peace, so he leaves the place. He starts to give away each and every one of his toys, something that he could be doing because he no longer feels like playing with anything, and it seems he no longer cares about his belongings. Just like Clarence's room, do you see this wall right here? Yeah, it's fucking empty, but what would look very nice here is the 100k subs plaque. So I would really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button to help me reach that goal before the year ends. Also, follow the IG where I show you progress of videos, random stuff, and me committing several crimes, because the illegal things are always so much fun. So yeah, please do those both things, especially subscribe, please. And now back to our normal dating content. This lack of emotions is seen in people with depression, but Clarence goes even further. This depression not only does it lead him to be sad and distance himself from others, but it also changes his appearance, to avoid getting attached to something. This is the way of someone to unconsciously get away from others and thus avoiding getting hurt. It's a psychological protection that we all have, and it's represented in an absolutely great way in this episode. Clarence shaves his head bald and starts wearing black clothes, and probably his favorite movie now is Fight Club. Everything continues going wrong, getting into increasingly serious problems, even taking out a skunk out of his backpack. Oh boy, we already know next time it's not gonna be a skunk, but an AK-47. This terrible behavior lands him on detention, which of course now is more justified. Belson, who never seemed to respect him, now has an interest in him, and asks him to team up since he considers so cool his change of attitude. Of course, being edgy is so cool.
Acting up is not the cool guy thing to do. Those mathlete kids, now that's cool.
The inexpressive and emotionless boy, who seems to be dead inside, looks at him with displeasure and ignores that fan. Here we see that Clarence is still obsessed with what happened, like the guilt is eating him alive, riding a schizo-like little body. As I said, sooner or later, Clarence's repressed emotions would make him do something. Also, remember how I said Clarence got rid of everything, except his doll's arm? Well, one of the boys runs quickly towards Miss Shoop to warn her of a serious problem. When approaching the group of children that was surrounding Clarence, Miss Shoop finds herself with a really twisted image. Since Clarence is disguised as Lil Buddy, as he has cornered Jeff, who like the others is being forced to touch his doll's arm. Jeff only asks him to stop, and to get that out of his face. Miss Shoop tries to do something about it, but is quickly threatened by Clarence, who seriously tells her that if she dares to blow that whistle one more time, she's making a big mistake. She is in shock, but is about to do it. Clarence, with that look in his eyes that only those who descended to the bottom could have, seems to be ready to take action. And just as tensions are at all-time high, this happens.
Don't you?
The little bastard interrupts the moment by pulling down Clarence's pants in a humiliating act. Yo, what is this? A reminder of my childhood? While Belson is enjoying Clarence's humiliation, he is interrupted by a punch in his ugly ass face.
Pants.
Wow, Clarence has been such a character in this episode, not gonna lie. And after that solid jab, as if it were a kind of poetic justice, the kids begin to praise Clarence, happy that someone got what he deserved. But this means nothing for him, since he ends up pushing one of the boys who applauded this act, knocking out a tooth, saying don't condone violence, fleeing the scene looking all badass. And leaving us all stunned, since the Clarence we all knew would never resort to violence. He's punished and isolated from the others, while his friends talk about he's gonna get expelled or get some kind of special punishment. Everyone remains expectant about Clarence's fate. The time has come, and Clarence, not all sorry, is notified that his special punishment is ready, and he, waiting for this, enters the principal office with his head down. However, Clarence cannot believe what he sees. His executed is not the principal, it's Miss Baker, who beyond condemning his actions decides to attack the root of the problem, understanding him and talking to him about how he's had a tough time lately, and the big amount of bad behaviors she had noticed on him, making him feel understood a little. Miss Baker, before starting the special punishment, tells him someone wants to see him. Lil Buddy. Remember when he was committing his crime? She saw him going towards the forest in the middle of the rain, so she witnessed how this deeply affected him. And she dug up the doll and everything for the well-being of her student, and Clarence burst into tears. The repression of feelings can lead to us to self-destructive and highly aggressive behaviors, just like Clarence experienced, which were escalating each time more. His isolation and chains are clear signals that he needed help and understanding. However, Clarence, instead of seeking support, sank into his own pain, which of course that is always a time bomb that eventually will explode, which led him to act erratically and aggressive. But thanks to Miss Baker, which deserves all the applause in the room, because she decided to understand and talk to Clarence instead of simply punishing him, is a crucial point in the narrative and probably in this boy's future. Since she went further than what his family did. His mother was worried and saw the changes, but only limited herself to tell terrible jokes. And his dad? Oh wait, he doesn't have a dad. Oh, that makes so much sense. Once Clarence could hold his little body in his arms and had someone who seems to have finally understand his problems and pain, he returns to be the same boy, since she knows that he missed his recess, which wasn't fair. He will not get any punishment. On the contrary, he will have some time alone for him and his little body, where the two can make up for the time lost. He gets out of joy with his best friend, returning to be the same as always, with his altered perception, where they both don't look beat up and gross. This episode of Clarence shows us the profound impact that a trauma can have on a person, especially on a child. Clarence, an initially happy and charismatic boy, after facing an unfair situation, led him to take bad decisions, then his friend hurt him, and then blaming himself, which transformed him into someone unrecognizable. Due to the repression of his emotions and the lack of communication about his problems, this story highlights the importance of not repressing our emotions and how crucial it is to be understood rather than being punished for. believing that breaking his doll is something so brutal for him that he must hide the evidence is childish, but from his perspective of a literal child, really affects him. Miss Baker's empathetic approach and willingness to address the problem at its root allowed Clarence to reconnect with his emotions and find a way out of his sorrow. Let's not let the pain and suffering consume us. We should talk about our problems and share our emotional burdens, which not only healthy, but vital for our emotional and mental well-being. Thanks for watching.